It takes more than making and then sadly deleting hundreds of backwards incompatible changes to be a great software engineer. This is episode 134 of the Soft Skills Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Dance.
I'm your host, Dave Smith.
Soft Skills Engineering is a podcast where we answer all of your questions about the non-technical things that go into the technical field of software development.
It sounds like you've had a rough week.
Sometimes I stay up late-ish and I just wonder, what would it be like if I didn't have to worry about backwards compatibility? And then I just go crazy and then I look at my diff. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of lines deleted. Awesome. And then I sadly get checkout. Dash.
Get reset, dash hard.
Yeah.
Oh.
Get reset, dash tier. There aren't enough feelings in command line interfaces.
That's true.
Where's the input for how I feel when I run the command? That's a different show, though. That's not this show.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Pluralsight. Pluralsight is hiring software engineers, data scientists, and machine learning engineers in Boston and Salt Lake City. Go to pluralsight.com/softskills to see what job openings are available.
Do you want to talk about our wonderful patrons?
I absolutely do. We would like to thank the following amazing individuals who have contributed at the level where we say their names every single week. Thank you for your contribution. They are Matthew Wodowicz, the Agile Ventures Charity, Zach Grannon, Michael Green, David Jackson, Nick Cantar, and Sean Clayton. Thank you for supporting the show. If you'd like to support the show, go to softskills.audio and click on the Support Us on Patreon button. Even $1 a month helps us to pay for editing and hosting costs, which otherwise would bleed me dry.
Not me. Dave would do it all.
I am the financial backbone of this podcast.
Let's dive into our questions. I'm going to just read it.
All right.
This is from an anonymous listener. I'm currently doing nearly nothing at work, not by choice, and getting paid a king's ransom for it, just to stay on the roster. I've never been in this situation before. Would I be foolish to give it all up just to not be so miserably bored? I'm pretty sure this isn't sustainable and that I'd get laid off in the next economic downturn before you guys might get to my question. But just curious what your insights are.
Don't worry. I don't think we're ever going to have another economic downturn. We've already had one.
How many can there be?
I know. There was only one Great Depression. There can't be two. Of course, that's what they said after the World War I, which they didn't call World War I, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if they called it the Greatest Depression, then there would only be able to be one.
But they didn't.
A pretty big depression.
The Greater Depression is on the way.
Also, the subtitle for my journal the past week.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting. I have a lot of questions that aren't going to get answered. I'm just going to ask them to you, Dave, and maybe you can make up the answers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not by choice. What does this mean? Why? I'm currently doing nothing at work, not by choice, and getting paid a king's ransom. Is it like they keep getting moved off of projects before they ship? Is it like there's dependencies so they can't start work on their thing yet? I have a hard time understanding how you would have literally nothing to do.
Maybe not by choice is actually a cry for help. There's someone standing with a gun to his head.
Oh, this is like okay. Let me read between the lines and it looks, all right, I think I got it. You're really hungry and I've ordered you some Jimmy John's, but no bun, because it looks like from reading between the lines, gluten-free.
Okay.
Did I interpret the coded ransom note message here? They're crying for help. I think that's the help they're looking for. They're hungry.
I see. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I like it.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't understand how you could be in the situation of getting paid a lot of money and not... I guess I could see where there's not a ton of external direction on what you do, but then wouldn't you just find stuff to do?
Not if the company is big enough.
This does seem like a big company thing. You couldn't be like 1/5 of the startup engineering team and just do nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I can't start my work yet because the other 4 people are not done with their thing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I hope no one notices.
I could see this happening at a big enough company, especially after some kind of reorganization. It's just happened and kind of the ink isn't really dry yet and not really clear how to efficiently run the team, and you kind of slipped through the organizational cracks. I could see it.
So, okay, I guess I'll just believe you that it can happen. But what should you do? Because it does seem weird that you would be like, hey, I'm not doing anything. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Not the best conversation with your boss.
So, the past 6 months, let me tell you all about The Office, or I don't know, whatever
Minesweeper.
Whatever TV show you dove into. Yeah. You just sit down and you're having this like really in-depth architectural discussion while you're flawlessly completing a Minesweeper level incredibly quickly. Like, how did you have time to do that? You're like, I don't know.
Lots of practice.
4 to 8 hours every day for 6 months.
What's the number of hours you need to achieve mastery? 10,000 hours? That's right.
It's like the Groundhog Day thing where he flings the cards into the hat.
Oh, yeah. Or learns to play the piano.
Yeah.
How did you learn to play the piano? Well, my dad was a piano mover.
So what do you do? I mean, I could see how it'd be unfulfilling if you're literally kept from doing fulfilling work.
For sure. Like for the rest of your life. That could be pretty bad.
Yeah.
But this strikes me as a highly temporary situation. It will end.
For better or
one way
for
or
worse.
Yeah. So I am the kind of person that goes insane if I'm bored at work, which has only happened to me like maybe a few times for a few days.
Is it good insane where you produce like really tortured art? Or you just bad insane?
No, definitely bad insane. More
the
like
tortured art is made out of poop.
Painted on the walls by hand.
Yeah.
Yep. More like that. Oh, man. But, I just can't stand not contributing. And it makes me start, brushing up my resume, looking for other jobs, laboriously working through every exercise and cracking the coding interview 6th edition. Wait a minute. That's the second week in a row that book has come up.
What about, I don't think I've been in this situation. Does it feel like you just have a blank check? Because you could do whatever you want. Could you just like find a team that is doing cool stuff and be like, hey, do you want free help?
That'd be cool.
I don't know how realistic that is, though. Maybe it'd be worse to be doing something for a different team than to be doing nothing.
I don't think so. I think it'd be better.
Well, better for you, right? But maybe like whatever shadowy organization is making this happen would be like, you can't help that team. You're supposed to be doing nothing for our team.
Yeah. Who's going to do nothing for our team if you're helping that team? You never know. We could be dealing with a really perverse incentive system here where you're supposed to be charging some contract by the hour and burning it down because otherwise your customer will lose their money for next year's budget or something. So maybe you're trapped.
Yeah. But if you're trapped and it's unfulfilling, I feel like the answer at the end of every parable or fable or storybook is always like, and it turns out money wasn't the most important thing. Doing what made you happy was. And
yeah.
So I guess if I believe all those people, then maybe you just quit and get a job where the work is fulfilling. Well,
let me just tell you, you don't go into a career of writing fables because you make a lot of money.
Famed wealthy person, anonymous author.
Yeah.
Who wrote Facebook quotes didn't become a millionaire? Is that what you're telling me?
I went into fable writing for the money, but I stayed around for the fulfillment.
all the money gets gobbled up by Big Chicken Soup for the Soul, that corporate entity. The little guys writing the books don't get anything.
Big Chicken Soup for the Soul. No wonder there's so many freaking spin-offs of that franchise.
I don't know. I feel like if I were truly trapped, I feel like it would. You mentioned the cracking the coding interview thing. Isn't this an opportunity to play with every random cool thing? Like, I don't know, serverless blockchain learning machines, whatever.
Crypto. Don't forget crypto.
Yeah, I feel like we've been making fun of crypto for long enough that there's got to be a new cutting edge thing.
Yeah,
and I'm just
it'll come.
Too behind the times to know.
Object-oriented programming is new, right? You can make fun of that.
no one knows what it is. So
good point.
You just get to make up a definition and then claim you've discovered the true meaning of it.
So if you spend your whole day like experimenting with new technologies and teaching yourself new stuff, how do you deal with the crippling guilt at night? That's what I want to know.
That's a really good question. You know that gif of that guy who's wiping his tears with money?
Is that how you do it?
I think so. Don't you just buy stuff to make yourself temporarily happy?
You drive home in your Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see the guilt being a thing, especially if, like, I don't know, maybe you're on a team and the team is kind of aware of it. That would be hard for me, I think, actually, if I felt like it was negatively affecting other people. I just don't, I think I don't know enough about the situation to understand how this could be, though.
Well, who cares how it could be? You're stuck here, and you're making a ton of money. You're doing nothing. You're on the roster, and what do you do?
I mean, I guess you either change it or
don't change
make the most of it. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess you boiled it down to the core. But you could try to move to something more productive in the company, or try helping out other teams or whatever, like working around the fact that you're doing nothing, or just go get a different job. Or you could use it as a little laboratory to learn and improve and grow.
You could get really good at meditation.
That is true, isn't that? Yeah, there's a lot of focus nothing there, right?
8 hours a day of mindfulness. I'm a professional mindfulness engineer.
This is the extreme form of hammock-driven development.
It's just hammock-driven relaxation.
Yeah, have you heard of hammock-driven development?
I think so. Is this where I was gonna? I'm just gonna make myself look stupid. What is it?
Oh, well, we'll just edit all that part out.
No, it's cool. I don't mind.
I first heard it from a Rich Hickey talk. I don't know if he invented it, but it's basically all of the thinking parts of your job that don't happen while you're sitting at a computer typing out the answer that you thought of. Mm-hmm. So your brain is like churning away on problems and kind of like the shower thoughts and
I was going to say I do that in the shower.
Yeah, like the idle background processing that somehow figures stuff out. You're just on a tear of hammock-driven development.
By the way, when I said I do that in the shower, what I meant was I have my hammock in the shower. Not sure if that was clear.
There's a suction cup to the walls.
Yeah. Okay, I have some serious advice here, but I'm actually super reluctant to give it.
Okay.
And I don't know. Don't judge me, world, for this, but I'm going to say you have your whole career to be frantic and busy and constantly up against the wall of a deadline or pressure with too much to do and 30 items on your to-do list. Why not just take advantage of this opportunity for just, I don't know, maybe a few weeks and then see what happens? You know, just like give yourself a pass for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and then deal with this. I mean, obviously, if this goes on for a couple of years, you're going to be guilt-ridden, miserable, and you're going to start deteriorating as an engineer because your skills will rot, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're working through cracking the coding interview full-time for 2 years, in which case you'll be the best interviewer of all time.
Yeah. Which means you will be the best employee of all time.
That's right. That's right.
Right, companies?
That is an interesting appeal to extremes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, would you really want to hire someone who is so good at interviewing? I would kind of embrace it. I think I would lean into this and just relax, take a load off, and you know, do what this company is asking you to do, which in this case is very little, and see where it leads. And just remember, you've got your whole life to be a frantic, you know, behind the curve engineer constantly trying to meet the next deadline.
Yeah, that seems valuable.
In other words, you won the lottery, you know?
Yeah.
And yet I hate myself for saying this, don't I? I mean, it's so bad. It feels bad, but I think it's right.
Does it feel bad because you feel like you're taking advantage of this company?
Exactly.
Or because you're not producing for yourself?
No, just the first thing. You're getting paid. Presumably the company thinks they're getting value out of you, but you're not really delivering value. You know, unless there's some implicit thing here like, oh, by the way, I am Guido who invented Python and the company just wants to employ me, you know?
Yeah.
so that I don't go to my the competitors. I don't know, something like that. That's different. But I think in this case, it's probably an organizational accident that you are doing nothing and getting paid for it.
Yeah. I think this is some people's dream in a couple ways. One, there are definitely people whose dream is to do nothing and get paid for it. But also, you just have a lot of freedom. You can do nothing, but there's got to be something you could do. You can just figure out how to provide value without anyone telling you what to do. And that seems like an interesting experiment.
I have a few ideas.
Okay.
Are you interested in mailing out podcast stickers?
It sounds like you're offering free labor. We have some tasks we value at $0. What a coincidence.
It's the perfect marketplace.
No, but I mean, there's got to be some like wacky project or some moonshot thing that you think would be cool, or something that you feel like would be hard to get like approvals for dedicated teams for, but would make people's lives better. Some dev tools thing, or I don't know. You could use that as a challenge to see, because I agree with you, Dave. It seems unlikely that this will last forever. I don't think you're necessarily doing anything morally wrong, especially if you're using it as a chance to say like, well, no one's telling me to do anything useful, so I'll just do something I think is useful.
Feels borderline morally wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. My guilt would be off the charts.
Yeah, I feel like this would assuage my guilt if I could convince myself that they're telling me not to do this other work, but I'm going to do this thing that I think is important and will help the team that no one is telling me to do.
Yeah.
And they can't just say like literally do nothing. And I think as part of that, there's probably a little bit of risk that you might stir up enough that people might notice and be like, wait, you're working on what? Why are you working on that? Oh, you don't have anything to work on? And then it'll crush your little bubble.
Exactly. Like, let's say you spend the next 6 months building this thing, and you demo it, and someone, some leadership person is like, wait, this must have taken you at least 6 months to build full time.
How is that worse than if you do nothing for 6 months though? It seems like it could only be better that you have something to show for it instead of back to back to back through cracking the coding interview.
Yeah. Good point.
Which is a fine book. We're not ripping on the book.
It is a fine book. It's actually very good.
Yeah. All right. I feel like we've argued ourselves in circles.
All right. Where are you landing on this one then?
Just my idea is clearly the best one because I thought of it.
I agree. Anytime you think of stuff, it's good. So you're saying get a project that benefits the company in some way and do it. Throw yourself into it. Take this as an opportunity to do something that you could never get approval to do. And then see what happens.
Yeah, I think so. If it feels transient anyways, you can try and make the most of it. That's assuming you're not trying to just like milk it for all it's worth though.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to do in that. I don't know. That would feel bad. But
yeah, that would feel bad.
Yeah, this feels like kind of a blank check to try cool stuff. So
I think this is a gift. I mean, look at you. Most people have to toil and suffer to earn a lot less than you probably do. So
yeah. All right. Question answered.
Oh, wait.
What?
If you're not interested in mailing podcast stickers, you could, just to offset your guilt, you could head on over to Patreon and just make a really big donation. And then we would forgive you for not mailing the stickers.
What are those things that the Catholic Church did in the Middle Ages?
Oh, I know the
indulgences?
Word. Yeah, that's
Is
the
that
word.
what they were?
Yeah.
All right. So that's basically what you're saying we're offering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. I mean, you're the financial brains behind this podcast, so I'll let you handle that part. All right.
Okay.
Good luck.
Question answered.
We would like to bring you a message from our sponsor for this show, Pluralsight.
I knew that I was not great with CSS, but thanks to Pluralsight, I got to learn exactly how not great I am with one of their Skill IQ skill assessments. I was not surprised to learn that 50% of engineers are better than me at CSS.
Listen, Dave, I've got some bigger numbers. 71% of engineers are better than me at CSS, according to this assessment. So there's some nifty stuff going on when you take it, besides the shaming it did to me. The algorithm adapts the difficulty of the assessment to how you respond. So if it If it's too tricky, if you get a lot of answers wrong, then it makes the questions easier and vice versa too. And they're using item response theory, Bayesian stats, machine learning, data science, that kind of stuff.
I could tell it was dumbing the test down for me the more I took it.
So we're talking about this, first of all, because it's kind of cool to learn where you are lacking. But also, Pluralsight is hiring to work on this kind of thing. They're hiring folks to work on machine learning, data science, and engineering.
That's right. So I actually know a few people who work at Pluralsight, and they say that it's a really great place to work.
They have openings in Salt Lake City and Boston, and Pluralsight was voted the 18th best company to work for in the U.S. by Fortune magazine.
If you want to check out the open jobs, go to pluralsight.com/soft skills. That'll take you to a special page just for Soft Skills Engineering podcast listeners. That's pluralsight.com/soft skills.
Check it out. Thank you, Pluralsight. Do you want to read the next question, Dave?
Sure. This comes from a listener named Jerry who says, how do I deal with teams that are run as, air quotes, agile, but management who wants timelines and deadlines to steer the business? I'm at my second large software development company that's following the Agile and Scrum ceremonies. Oh, I like that word. That's a good one. Agile and Scrum ceremonies with weekly sprints that entail grooming and planning and retro meetings. But management keeps track of progress to align the efforts of multiple teams spread across the organization. I've noticed over the past year an increased desire to estimate timelines for when each team will be done with their portion of the project. This forces the teams to groom and size stories months out ahead. These estimates end up becoming deadlines that need justification to be pushed back, which is common since as you get into the work, you find more stories that need to be added. I had a very similar experience in my last company. Both have between 5,000 and 10,000 employees. I understand the needs of the business to plan ahead, so saying it'll be ready when it's done is not a good answer. However, it feels like we're constantly falling behind arbitrary deadlines and in a constant frenzy to catch up. So what to do?
I have a meta answer, which is that this will never not be a problem ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like from the very beginning of software, they immediately were like, everything takes way longer than we thought it would. What are we going to do about it? Let's have a conference to solve it today.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized it was hard. But I like I like the word ceremonies too. It feels like we need more fanfare at the beginning of our Agile meetings. Little trumpets, announcers, not announcers. They have fancier names than that.
Stand up.
Calling this meeting to order.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Yeah. Her Excellency, the Scrum Mistress.
The Scrum Mistress.
Yeah. I think more ceremony would spice it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out if you only think of what you're going to do a week in advance, you can't answer the question, when is this thing that's going to take 2 years going to be done? I feel like I understand this tension between like focus on tight iteration and like longer term goals, but I wonder how this happens where estimates turn into deadlines, because I do see it all the time as well. It's definitely not only you. And it seems like someone somewhere asks, hey, what's your team going to do? And then someone has to be like, well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they're like, okay, cool. When's that going to be done? And then you say like 3 months. And then 3 months later, they're like, hey, how about that thing that you said you were going to get done? So I don't know that it is always necessarily meant to be a deadline, but it always gets attached to time somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if there's a way to totally detach time from delivering anything. I don't know that that's possible. Like, especially if you have teams that depend on each other and you need to coordinate between them where this thing needs to happen first and this other team's working on it. And
I know how to do it.
How?
I have all the answers.
Okay. Where were you in the 50s when they started having these conferences?
Well, okay. You know those space movies where they put the passengers into hypersleep for like months and months?
Okay, yeah.
So you get your...
Oh, like put your executives in hypersleep.
See, the problem here is that the people who are, holding you to these timelines and who need to give approval when you want to change them, the problem is they're all awake. If you said, okay, in 6 months we're going to deliver this, and then you put all the management people to sleep for those 6 months, and then woke them up in 6 months and they would just say, oh, you did or you didn't deliver it, then you could have 6 months of really productive time. And that's my whole answer. And why, Jamison, to answer your sassy question, where was I in the 50s? Hypersleep hadn't been invented yet.
Rip Van Winkle's prior art for that, though.
Oh, darn it.
Okay, so just like knock them out somehow. Yeah, it feels like I mean the core answer of how you get a thing done at a fixed time is usually cut scope.
Mm-hmm.
It's very trite, but that's kind of the only thing you can do. If you can't control the deadline, you can control what gets done.
Yep.
So I've seen that work successfully where you have either real or arbitrarily imposed deadlines that you need to hit. You just say, okay, we can do anything we want as long as it's done by this date. that's the fixed part. And here's the broad thing that we'd like to get done, and we'll have something done by then.
Yep.
The part that sounds pretty dysfunctional here is all the effort into months ahead of time estimation of individual stories. That seems like it would only slow you down.
Why is that? Why would it slow you down? Just the time spent estimating?
Yeah, the time spent on this work that's not going to be useful because it's so far away that it feels like your work estimating it is more likely to be thrown out by the time you actually get to working on that, or that thing won't even be important by the time you get to that point. I don't know, maybe I'm just bad at project management, but it feels like you have to have a vague broad vision, and then you cut the specifics to hit deadlines, and you just kind of work as much as you can.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel very satisfying, and it's hard to sell consulting and books and stuff on that.
And cutting scope only works to a point. Like what we have here is a dependency system where you've got teams that are depending on one another to deliver components that they need, and you can cut scope, but if you cut scope beyond what the other team needs in order to deliver their stuff, then they have to cut scope, and then, I mean, I guess it's just scope cuts all the way down. But, I don't know. I mean, my mind has changed on this so much over the last 5 or 6 years. I was just a staunch, it'll be done when it's done engineer at my last company. And we we basically made commitments to the rest of the business of, like, we did 2-week sprints, and I think we committed, what did we do? 30 days or 60 days. I think we did 60 days of commitments, and we never ever went beyond 60 days. And it worked okay. But sometimes reality required more than a 60-day commitment for something that was either big, or we had some other external deadline that was pressuring something, or some other customer that needed, some commitment in order to sign a really big contract or something. So, these like aspirational desires to keep scope or keep the schedule within a bound that you can be confident about, they always fail eventually for reasons of reality.
Yeah.
And then I went to a company that does much more aggressive planning with hugely complex inter-team dependencies. And what I found was that what makes it all work is an army of people whose job is to manage the interdependency and manage the schedules and alert teams when things are slipping or changing, and then just deal with the fallout of schedule slipping. And because I think change is inevitable. And so, you get pushback when things need to change, but what you really need is a mechanism in place that is designed to respond to the change and allow the business to keep functioning.
It sounds like you're saying that you need to encourage that communication of what the reality is going to be for timelines. Instead of the impression I'm getting is it's not okay to say, hey, I don't know if we're going to get this thing done in this time. And that seems like it only makes things worse.
Yeah, I think
it's not gonna.
I think there's a healthy balance of like pressure.
It's pretty rare that you're like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be behind 6 months into the project, and then a year, and you're like, oh, turns out I was wrong.
We were ahead.
It all worked out. Like if you have an early inkling that stuff is gonna slip, it seems like that's kind of
yeah.
I don't know how to put it. That feels pretty real to me.
It's predictive.
So you're saying that there are people like mining that information and aggressively communicating it out instead of this feeling of like, you better not tell me it's going to slip. Is that right? Yes. And I think the more important thing is that there's a process in place to respond to and manage schedule change. And that means people who are tasked with staying on top of all the schedules, understanding the dependencies, understanding what the ripple effects are when schedules need to change, and then managing that change so that the right people get informed and the teams are able to adapt and move around as needed to deal with it. Yeah, the first step of that seems to be acknowledging that it's going to happen, though, where it feels like a lot of places base their style on like we're going to get everything done no matter what at the times that we set.
Yeah.
And everything less than that is a failure that you'll get in trouble for.
Right. And I think you have to be really careful to put too much trust. Like you have to put the right amount of trust in a delivery schedule based on the number of dependencies that are that compose that schedule. So like, for example, if you want to deliver feature X, but you know that there's like a 3-team deep hierarchy of dependencies behind that feature, like that clearly is a riskier proposition than a feature that only has one team that's going to work on it exclusively and ship it. And so like, your leadership just needs to know that.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that in my own work over the last year or so, that it's way easier to get stuff done that our team owns than stuff that, even if it's just one other team, it just like quadruples the amount of time it takes.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like what was the book Peopleware? I wonder if there's like a new iteration in that style that has to do now with like inter-team dependency risk instead of, the Mythical Man. No, I'm thinking Mythical Man Month. That's what I'm thinking of. Is that book. I wonder if there's a new book that could be written now based on like microservices and these organizations that kind of look like microservices,
Yeah. It sounds like you should write it.
Oh man,
I'd read
rich.
It. Okay, so I think you're right. That's my conclusion from this one. I got to be right last time. I think you're right this time.
All right.
Well, is that a reasonable solution to put on this person? Just like, your organization should have people whose job it is to manage these dependencies. And then
probably not.
Poor Jerry's like, yeah, it should.
Yeah, we should. Well, back to work.
Our work here is done. Wasn't that easy? Yeah, maybe just bubbling up that it's a problem. It feels like the kind of thing that everybody kind of just knows is a problem. And maybe if you articulate it, I don't know. It can't be a surprise to anybody that it is painful in this way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right words. Like when you provide an estimate, I'm trying to think of the right words to qualify that estimate,
It doesn't matter what they are. It's going to bubble up 5 layers, and each layer will remove an order of magnitude of sentences.
Yep. That's
By the end, it'll just be a grunt of like, whoa, ah. And that means a certain number of weeks.
I love it. Don't you love it though when like I've seen this before where a team gives an estimate and it's like 7 months away and they've picked a specific day of the month that they're going to deliver something. Yep. And you're like, yeah, right. Like, come on. We're going to deliver this on July 7th at 3:15 p.m.
Would you feel any more confident if it was like a further away, but more specific time? Or is it just the fact that it's so specific that makes you be like, whatever? Like if it was 2 years from now, July 14th or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you be like, okay, that's long enough. Maybe they can arrange it to hit that date.
No. I mean, I think like, why did you give me that level of specificity? Like if they were saying it's next week on Tuesday at 3:15 p.m., I'd be like, oh, they probably have their crap together. But if they said it's 2 years out at 3:15 p.m., I'd be like, you guys are just making stuff up.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
That kind of gets into the idea of planning, of sizing things based on uncertainty, not just on like how many calendar days it will take you to do a thing, where the fuzzier it is, the bigger the estimate is, because you're extrapolating based on a little tiny amount of data, and the further your extrapolation has to go, the less accurate it's going to be.
I like to see schedules that decrease the precision as the time horizon moves out. So like, if you're talking about next week, you can say a day of the week. If you're talking about next month, you can say maybe what week in the month you plan to deliver. But if you're talking about next year, you're talking quarters now. Like, and I think it's totally appropriate for a team to lay out a year's worth of quarters and say, in Q1 we're going to ship this, in Q2 we're going to ship this, and then every quarter that whole schedule changes based on what you learned this quarter. But there's this concept called continuous planning too. I don't know much about it besides the name. It sounds pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea of scoping the accuracy of your estimate to the distance from current time.
Yeah, like it should be basically, verboten to say like a date that's more than 12 months out. You should be targeting a quarter or a month.
Yeah. This is all assuming there isn't like, I don't know, the IRS has a date that's 12 months out. There isn't some hard
That's true.
external deadline. It's just like,
Yeah.
when is your project going to be delivered?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Have we helped Jerry?
Poor Jerry. Yep, I think we solved all of Jerry's problems.
Yeah, good news. We've solved it. All of the work that's gone on in the past decades has been leading up to now, and we did it.
We finally figured it all out.
When I say we, I mean Dave.
I do just want to acknowledge, though, this tension. Like, when you're working on an Agile team, it's actually totally normal to have a tension between long-term business objectives and the nature of Agile planning, which is only plan what you can deliver in the next sprint, right?
Yeah. Well, what used to be the tension until we solved it.
Until hypersleep made everything right.
All right. Where can people go if they want their own previously unsolved questions to be solved?
Go to softskills.audio and click on Ask a Question. Thank you so much to everyone who's been asking questions. As usual, we have way too many questions to answer, but you are the lifeblood of the show, so keep them coming. And a little tip, try to keep them as brief as possible. Share any relevant detail, but the shorter, the sweeter.
It's that same tension. Give us all the detail, but please keep them short.
Yep.
It's a theme in life. Yeah, thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you next week.